Has any actor had such an amazing beginning to their film career as Meryl Streep? I mean, she makes her debut opposite Jane Fonda in the Oscar-winning Julia, and then she follows that up with her Emmy-winning role in Holocaust and her Oscar-nominated role opposite Robert De Niro in The Deer Hunter, a film that won the Academy Award for Best Director and Best Picture. That's a little better than Tom Hanks getting his start in the slasher movie He Knows You're Alone, or Sandra Bullock's first film credit, Hangmen, a laughably bad indie. After many years developing her craft in theater, Meryl Streep started really strong, as I talked about in my Part 1 video, but her first 2 years in film only scratched the surface of everything she was about to accomplish in that third year, 1979. In Part 2 of Meryl Streep and the Oscars, I'm going to talk about her 3 credits that rounded out the decade. First, Manhattan, her one and only appearance in a Woody Allen movie. Second, The Seduction of Joe Tynan, which teamed her with Alan Alda. And third, Kramer vs. Kramer, the blockbuster success that earned Streep her first of 3 Academy Awards. Now, did she coast to a win in early 1980 for Best Supporting Actress? And who was her main competition? If you're a fan of the 21-time Academy Award-nominated actress, you've come to the right place. So sit back and relax and enjoy Part 2 of Meryl Streep and the Oscars. It's crazy to think that in 1977, very few people knew who Meryl Streep was, but in early 1979, her film career was blossoming after 3 successful projects and an Oscar nomination for The Deer Hunter. She might have lost that award to Maggie Smith for California Suite, but after the 51st Academy Awards in early April, Streep's next film appearance was just a few weeks away, Woody Allen's Manhattan, which opened in theaters at the end of April in 1979. Allen's acclaimed black and white comedy drama stars Michael Murphy, Diane Keaton, and Mariel Hemingway in an Oscar-nominated role. Streep, who shot her role in early 1978, is only briefly in Manhattan, appearing in 3 scenes as Jill, an ex-wife of Allen's character Isaac, who's writing a tell-all book about their marriage. Her part as Jill marks her first contentious turn in a movie. The sweet girl from Holocaust and The Deer Hunter, this is not. She is angry, conniving. You almost see the makings of Miranda Priestley in The Devil Wears Prada. In her first scene with Allen, she's walking down a sidewalk, her long blonde hair blowing in the wind. She's so confident in herself that she won't even entertain the idea of not writing her book, and all Allen can really do is keep up with her as she tries to get away. Despite her previous relationship with Isaac and the fact that they have a kid together, she's seen in the second scene of the film sharing her home with a woman. She welcomes Isaac into her home and offers him coffee, but as soon as he mentions the book, she goes ballistic on him again.
So you felt that you had to run her over with the car?
Do I look like the type of person that would run someone over in a car? You know how slowly I was going?
Not slowly enough that you didn't rip the whole front porch of the cabin off.
This scene, like her first, is played all in one take. It obviously didn't take Streep very long to shoot the movie. In a 1997 interview, she said she worked on the movie for only 2 or 3 days and didn't really get to know Allen. She ultimately felt he hated her character. What she's saying is probably right, since Jill is fairly underwritten and doesn't do much but yell at him. In her third and final scene, she says the book is, yet again, an honest account of our marriage, and her closing line, "I've had some interest in this book for a movie sale," is slightly anticlimactic for her character, reducing her to some kind of villain. She's got that great icy exterior we would see from Streep in so many of her later movies, but it would have been nice for Allen to give her character more to do in Manhattan. Now, the film was really well liked at the time, most critics praising it, and awards bodies giving it lots of nominations, like a whopping 10 at BAFTA, including 1 for Streep for Best Supporting Actress, and 2 at the Oscars, 1 for Best Original Screenplay, and 1 for Mariel Hemingway in the Best Supporting Actress category. This was a performance that would ultimately lose the Oscar in early 1980 to Streep for a different movie.
Is it true that that was your first real kiss?
It was the first kind of make-out kiss that had to be recorded for all of time in all of history. I remember when it was done, I looked at Gordy Willis, who was the cameraman, and looked at him and I go, "I don't have to do that again, do I?" He goes, "No, we got it." I was like, "Oh, thank God." Well, poor Woody, he probably would have loved another kiss.
Hemingway, of course, leads us to the creep factor of Manhattan, 42-year-old Allen romancing a 17-year-old girl Hemingway who's still in high school. Many have written off the entire career of Allen these days due to the credible allegations made against him, and of all of his movies, Manhattan might be the hardest one to reckon with, given one of its major storylines. Thankfully, Streep had lots more to show us in the rest of 1979, and it was only about to get better. It was Alan Alda who spearheaded Streep's next project. Nominated for an Academy Award for his performance in The Aviator, Alda has been a working actor for more than 6 decades now, appearing in such memorable films as California Suite and Same Time Next Year. He was at the height of his popularity in the late 1970s when his critically acclaimed smash hit TV show MASH was entering its later seasons, and he had clout at the time to do anything he wanted. Therefore, he was able to get a screenplay he wrote called The Seduction of Joe Tynan off the ground, with him also starring in the title role. Directed by Jerry Schatzberg, who also made Scarecrow in The Panic in Needle Park, the film features a stellar supporting cast, including Barbara Harris, Melvin Douglas, and Rip Torn. Streep rounds out the ensemble, and in The Seduction of Joe Tynan, she's in more of this movie than she was in Manhattan, as well as her Oscar-winning role in Kramer vs. Kramer. She plays Karen Trainer, a Southern researcher who helps Joe prepare a case, leading the opposition to a Supreme Court appointment.
God, you taste good. I want to be honest with you.
I know. You're married? I know. So am I.
The Seduction of Joe Tynan was the first film Streep made after the passing of her then partner John Cazale, and even she has said she was on automatic pilot during the filming because she was still grieving. She has said it was the support of Alda who helped her get through the process, but what was happening in her personal life never shows up on screen. Streep excellent as a confident, independent woman who knows what she's getting into when she enters the affair. Ultimately, The Seduction of Joe Tynan gave the last glimpse of Streep before she became a famous worldwide figure for the beloved blockbuster drama Kramer vs. Kramer, released in December of 1979. This is the movie that, of course, won Streep her first Oscar, and it was the movie that worked its way into the hearts of millions. Winner of the Academy Award for Best Picture, Kramer vs. Kramer remains one of Streep's very best films. And although she's not the lead, her affecting performance lingers in the viewer's mind, her scenes crackling with honesty, intensity, and raw emotion, and it's a moment in a courtroom as she delivers a devastating monologue Meryl Streep wrote herself that I would argue made her a bona fide movie star. Surprisingly, Streep wasn't supposed to play Joanna Kramer. Kate Jackson was slated for the part, but she had to drop out because of her commitment to Charlie's Angels. After that, the producer didn't want to even consider Streep, and it took the enthusiasm of both Dustin Hoffman and director Robert Benton to officially bring her on board. By 1979, Hoffman was considered one of the finest actors in Hollywood, having appeared in films like The Graduate, Lenny, All the President's Men, and Marathon Man. Hoffman was a major star at the time, while Streep wasn't. Similarly, Hoffman is the lead of Kramer vs. Kramer, while Streep has far less screen time. Therefore, it was a risky move, I'd say, to open the movie on Streep's face and not Hoffman's. When Joanna's husband Ted comes home, thrilled to talk to his wife about a major account he acquired at work, she gives him back his keys and tells him she's leaving him for good, and she's not taking their son Billy.
No, don't make me go in there, please. Please don't make me go in there. Don't make me go in there. If you do, I swear, one day, next week, maybe next year, I don't know, I'll go right out the window.
Ted barely has time to process what she's saying to him before she enters the elevator and walks out of his life. Ted has never been much of a parental figure to Billy, but once he's all his son has, he transforms from a workaholic advertising executive to a father who truly cares about his kid. And then months later, just when the father and son have formed a real bond together, Joanna returns to New York, feeling like a new person and ready to take back what she believes is hers, Billy.
I am still his mother.
Yes, from 3,000 miles away, and just because you sent a few postcards, it gives you the right to come back here?
I never stopped wanting him.
What makes you so sure he wants you?
What makes you so sure he doesn't want me?
Kramer vs. Kramer is an endlessly engaging film, the story of a family that becomes broken, then becomes unbroken, then threatens to become broken yet again. Since we spend so much time with Ted and Billy, by the time Joanna enters the picture again, we don't want her there. Her reappearance in the third act of the movie is startling because we have almost forgotten about her. And when she does come back, the unthinkable becomes a pained reality, considering the relationship between Ted and Billy we've come to love. When the two Kramers go up against each other in court, it's likely from the get-go that the judge will side with the mother and not the father. Streep has the hardest acting job in the film by far because she is, in a sense, the antagonist. By the time Ted has finished his character arc and becomes a stand-up dad who will do anything for his kid, her insistence on getting Billy back is really difficult for us to hear. And yet it's remarkable how Streep, with the slim amount of screen time she has, ultimately makes Joanna sympathetic. We never come to hate her, and in the hands of a lesser actress, this character might have come off as a one-note villain. Streep, however, always gives Joanna a point of view that makes sense.
I think if there's anything, that runs through all my work, all my characters, it's that I've had a relationship with them where I feel I have to defend them. I thought she was a rat in a maze, She had no choice. Sick people don't often have a choice. And I thought she was mentally ill.
She is so very real in every scene in Kramer vs. Kramer. Her first scene at the beginning is devastating, a pain in her eyes in each step she takes away from her boy. When she comes back, meeting with Ted at a restaurant after more than a year away, she has a lightness about her. For a minute it appears like they might actually have a pleasant conversation, but things quickly turn sour when she brings up Billy. Ted cuts Joanna off almost immediately and says she can't have him. An improvised moment at the end, when Hoffman shatters his wine glass against the wall, shakes us to our core, almost as much as it shook Streep. She didn't know Hoffman was going to push the glass off the table, and so her shocked expression is real.
To the cameraman, I said, if I see that glass there on the table, you talk like convicts in the joint. You don't want the guards to hear you. See that? He says, yeah. I says, okay, just tell me if I whack that before I leave, and I'm not going to whack it, I'll be careful, I'm going to whack it at the brick wall, because I don't want to hit her or anything like that.
Moves like this by Hoffman didn't exactly please Streep. She has said how Hoffman would overstep, like when he really slapped her in one take of a scene. Hoffman was getting a divorce in real life at the time, and so he took a lot of that anger out on Streep while acting his scenes.
I was properly upset, I thought, and I was getting my stuff together and walked out in the hallway, and he looked at me and he slapped me as hard as he could.
Who? Dustin?
Dustin.
What the?
Yeah, and you can see it in the film. There's a big big hand mark. I was so kind of shocked. And he denies that ever happened, by the way.
But were you pleased he did it because that helped you get that performance out, or would you have been able to give that performance?
No, I felt I could do the acting for myself.
He later apologized for his actions, saying, "I have the utmost respect for women and feel terrible that anything I might have done could have put her in an uncomfortable situation." Streep got the last laugh about Hoffman in 2012 when she played Shag, Marry, Kill on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen.
Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
Robert Redford.
Redford, Marry, maybe. Jack, Shag.
Okay.
And
Dustin Ixnay.
Dustin.
Okay, very good.
Now, I would say Streep's shining moment in Kramer vs. Kramer takes place in the courtroom when we get a firm sense of what her character was going through for 15 months. Her acting in the scene is exquisite, the truth of the character finally coming through in a clear, unsentimental manner. The last scene in the film between Hoffman and Streep, after the court case is concluded, is a gem as well. The writing, the acting, those final images, all superb, and quite the cathartic release for the audience.
How do I look?
Terrific.
Kramer vs. Kramer was the last of Streep's 1970s films, and she couldn't have ended the decade on a better note. Not only did Kramer vs. Kramer do extraordinarily well at the box office, making more than $100 million, it also swept award season in a way few movies have before and since. It started at the beginning of 1980 at the Golden Globes, where it was nominated for 8 awards. The film won Best Screenplay, Best Picture, Best Actor for Hoffman, and Best Supporting Actress for Streep, who hilariously talked about her win on the Graham Norton Show.
But I was there after Kramer versus Kramer giving birth to my first child. I was breastfeeding, and 2 o'clock came, 3 o'clock came, 4 o'clock came, and yeah, in a white dress, like a silk dress. So I sat like this, and they called my name. I won, and I walked up.
The awards train continued, Robert Benton winning the DGA Award and the WGA Award, and Streep winning prizes from multiple critics groups. The film was released so late in the year that BAFTA didn't recognize it until 1981, and although it didn't win anything there, it still received 6 nominations, including Best Lead Actress for Streep. The big showing, of course, was at the 52nd Academy Awards on April 11, 1980, hosted by Johnny Carson. In the year of Norma Rae and Apocalypse Now, Kramer vs. Kramer came out on top, tying with All That Jazz for the year's most nominations with 9 total. Kramer vs. Kramer got in for film editing, cinematography, supporting actress for Jane Alexander, and supporting actor for Justin Henry, who at 8 years old was the youngest nominee in any competitive honor in Academy Awards history. Now, unlike All That Jazz, which won its Oscars in only technical categories, Kramer vs. Kramer swept the top categories, winning Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture. Dustin Hoffman was on his 4th Oscar nomination for Best Actor, and after losses for The Graduate, Midnight Cowboy, and Lenny, he finally took the gold trophy for Kramer vs. Kramer. His acceptance speech is a gem.
He has no genitalia and he's holding a sword.
And then there was Meryl Streep, who was on her 2nd Oscar nomination in just 2 years, and who was about to become, for the first time, an Oscar winner. And unlike some other years, like in 2012 when she beat out Viola Davis for Best Actress, Streep pretty much had no competition on her way to her first Academy Award. Jane Alexander was never going to win for her less showy role in Kramer vs. Kramer over Streep. The 4-time Oscar nominee didn't even bother showing up to the ceremony, and Streep's Manhattan co-star Mariel Hemingway also wasn't going to win, given the poor performance of Alan's film at the Oscars, only making it into supporting actress and original screenplay. Candice Bergen received her only Oscar nomination to date that year for Starting Over, which also netted Joe Clayburgh a nod in lead actress, but that film didn't show up in any other category, so Bergen's chances were also slim. I would argue the only person who gave Streep somewhat of a threat was Barbara Barrie for Breaking Away, for no other reason than her film overperformed on Oscar nominations morning, receiving 5 nods total, including Best Director for Peter Yates and Best Picture. Its win for Best Original Screenplay showed the Academy's enthusiasm for the film, and thus Barrie could have coasted on that wave of enthusiasm all the way to a surprise victory. But really, let's be honest, Streep was always winning this Oscar. She won the Golden Globe beforehand, and at the Oscars, the movie took picture, director, lead actor. Streep makes such an impression in her few minutes of screen time that, paired with her previous nomination and loss the year before for The Deer Hunter, any other winner in the category would have been a legitimate shocker. Yes, it was indeed Streep's name Jack Lemmon called that night as the winner of Best Supporting Actress, and her speech once she reaches the stage is extremely brief and fantastic.
Holy mackerel. I'd like to thank Dustin Hoffman and Robert Benton, to whom I owe this. Stanley Jaffe for giving me the chance to play Joanna, and Jane Alexander and Justin for the love and support during this very, very delightful experience. Thank you very much.
Meryl Streep's win at the 52nd Academy Awards might not have meant that much to her. She famously left her gold trophy in the bathroom moments after delivering her speech, but it certainly meant a lot to her career, her previous successes, and that Academy Award triumph, leading the way to what would be an astonishing decade of Streep performances in the 1980s. This decade would give us 6 more Meryl Streep Oscar nominations, including her most deserved win. But before we get to that win, next time in part 3, we'll talk about the exciting Oscar race that happened in 1982 when Streep was nominated for the first time in lead actress for The French Lieutenant's Woman, up against the one and only Katharine Hepburn for one of my all-time favorite films, On Golden Pond. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below what you enjoy about Meryl Streep's performance in Kramer vs. Kramer. Do you think she was the right Oscar winner that year? See you next time.